Let's go to the Rude guest hotline. Rude, the most reliable heating and air conditioning products in the DMV. And welcome onto the show, Conor Orr, senior writer, Sports Illustrated, who had an outstanding story on Jayden Daniels that dropped end of the week here, talking about Daniels flexing his power, projecting his own narrative naturally. He has his mom as an agent, and they are going to make his career happen and take flight. It was a really good deep dive into Jayden Daniels. I thought it was an awesome job by Conor Orr. Conor, thanks for the time in D.C. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. How are you?
Very well.
Great,
so
buddy.
Tell us about the time spent on the piece and who you talked to and kind of the impetus for writing it.
Yeah, I mean, Jayden and I worked together on a story back when he was coming out in the draft, and I think just getting to know him back then, getting to know his family and his setup and kind of the way that he wanted to do things, it was always in the back of my mind that I thought that this was going to be an interesting story if it actually took shape at the NFL level. And lo and behold, he has this incredible first season, and then his mom does get NFLPA certified, and it's like, wow, here we are. So I thought it was definitely the right time to do it.
In terms of getting, doing all the research, getting to know him, his mom, et cetera, for the piece, what thing that you kind of uncovered surprised you the most?
Well, I just think that, with a lot of people, there's the, maybe some hesitancy to be out in the public. But with Jayden, it's just more of a, it's hard to describe, but it's almost like there's nothing for me to know. And I would just like to be kind of alone. I'd kind of like to be a homebody. And, there's something that's like very cool about it and different about him. I think like quarterback is such an attention-seeking position just by nature, but the fact that like he's just so comfortable being himself and hanging out on his own. I mean, his mom was saying that his childhood bedroom hasn't changed and he still sleeps in there like a decent amount, and so that's fairly amazing for like one of the best, quarterbacks in the NFL.
What do you make? I'm interested because you brought up his mom and that relationship. I mean, she is very involved and around, and it's kind of the butt of jokes online. At times he's, seen dancing at a wedding and she's next to him or whatever. And I've kind of found the discourse weird, but the relationship and the two of them. I mean, she is around. Like, she's on the field at practices hugging Terry McLaurin or whatever. They're very, very close. What do you make of that rapport?
I think until there's something that leads you to believe that it's odious, then, you have to assume that it's a parent taking care of a kid. And, everything that I've seen, and here's the other thing that I always explain to people, right? It's like the parents who have gone through NIL with their kids are just different, and they've seen different things, and they've experienced different things, right? I mean, from high school on, you're doing your day job is whatever, a healthcare administrator, and then you're also negotiating like deals with auto dealerships and marketing, and it forces you to change as a parent. And I think there's something to be said about the fact that, and I don't know how this is going to end with her and him, but there's something to be said for the fact that, like, hey, I want to be here managing your managers because I've already done it to this point,
To that point, you mentioned now certified agent. Is the idea that, like, the team would negotiate with her on his next extension, or would he still have, one of the NFLPA agents he's used do that, and she's kind of more of a marketing manager?
My understanding, at least for now, it seems like, and Jayden brought that up too. I mean, he has Ron Butler, and he kind of views him as his agent, but Regina is involved in his foundation, for example. He said, like, she's critical in moments where it's like, here's a marketing opportunity, here's why I don't think we should do it, here's why I do think we should do it. And really, I mean, there's 3 other moms now who have become NFLPA certified since then, Odell Beckham's mom among them. And they all said the same thing, right? It's like, this is an existence that nobody really has a game plan for. And sometimes their kids need this kind of hybrid person in their life where it's like someone who knows the business but also can be mom on the phone.
Conor Orr with us here on Grant and Danny, great piece in Sports Illustrated. Deep dive into Jayden Daniels. In terms of one of the trappings that happens sometimes is when somebody is the new hotness right in the league. He's everybody's darling. Everybody loves the guy. We love him here. Obviously, he's been a godsend. He's great. Hasn't done a single slip up, a single thing wrong. He's been so great. And sometimes that, you get up to that peak and then you get knocked down, whether it's just because you don't play quite as well or something like that, or there could be the trappings of fame. How is he handling all the astronomical pressure that's been put on him from his excellent play?
I just don't think that there's pressure, and I think that there's a way that you can take it on by living your life in a certain way. And there's a way where, I was talking to him and I'm like, okay, what did you do this off season? And he's like, well, I went to like Paris for a day or two for some NFL initiative, but that's about it. It's not like we see him out all the time. It's not like we see him engaging in this lifestyle. It seems like, hey, he's 24, 25. He really likes playing football, and he kind of just wants that to be the beginning and the end of it for right now. And, he said, like, hey, in the off season, like, I don't really talk to my mom. I stay here, I chill out, I sleep in, he's just like anybody else, right? And so I think he's just kind of enjoying that part of his life right now. And you don't have to experience that massive star rise and star fall, or at least not as much, I don't think, if you just don't engage. And I think that's what he's trying to do.
Conor Orr on Jayden Daniels wrote a piece for SI that came out this week. Daniels, of course, the news of the day, if you're just jumping in the car, getting out of the office on a busy day, will not play Sunday against the Raiders. First game he'll miss in his NFL career, which we'll talk to Conor about in just a few moments. One other thing, as we kind of peel back the layers on Daniels from what you've gotten to know over the years, admirable and rare for him to be as plugged in and kind of all ball as he is. I know that's one of the things that Commanders really love about him. But I find him to be, I covered the beat during Robert Griffin's era, and Griffin's personality was very different in the sense of, I feel like we knew a lot about his story and a lot about him and his kind of background and what even, his likes, dislikes. Jayden just seems so private. Like, it's crazy for a superstar who's the most important player in the town. I don't really know much about the guy. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I used to cover the Giants, right, and during the Eli Manning era, and I think you could say the same thing about him, and that was by design, right? I mean, after the family went through Archie's career and then went through Peyton's career, you see a concerted, stepped-up effort with every single person that comes through this lineage to be able to allow them to live a normal life. I mean, perfect example, like I live in Jersey. I live 15 minutes from Eli Manning, and we would eat at the same, 3-star diner, like a couple times a week, and that's just how he wanted to live his life. And so I think that it's possible. I think it's possible in a big market, but you have to play it the right way. And I think that Jayden will open up when it's time to open up, but I think at the same time, it's like, it's almost like he has nothing. There's nothing to hide. You know what I mean? It's just like he's just kind of a normal 24-year-old kid, and I think that's pretty cool.
Right. I think that's kind of the idea.
Yeah.
I don't want to say, because I'm the exact same way. It's like I go to work, I come home, I think about work, I hang out with my kids, I go back to work. I think he's kind of got that, boring, all-ball existence, which for me is sign me up for that every time. A lot of quarterbacks have not worked out because they didn't have enough of that.
Listen, I did a story about this in before the 2011 or 2012 draft when I was at NFL Network, and I polled some executives and I was like, what's the number one quality that you like in a guy? And of course there's traits and all that stuff, but in terms of character, it's boring. I don't want this guy out. I don't want this guy thinking about anything else. I want this guy to be a normal guy, because when you're a normal guy, you relate to people in a normal way. And I'll say this too. I mean, having interviewed him in person before the college football issue, before the draft issue, and then over Zoom this time, he just has a way of making you feel like you're the only person in the room. And, he'll put his phone down on the other side of the room. I was there when he did a photo shoot that one day for 2 hours for Sports Illustrated. I didn't see him touch it. And how rare is that for a kid who's 23 or 24 years old? I think that that's where his interpersonal gift is. And it's not, you don't necessarily have to be this big-time guy if you can make people feel seen and make people feel important. And he's really good at that.
Conor, in terms of Jayden's mom, I think a lot of people, if they just sort of read a Cliff Notes version, and Greg kind of touched on this earlier, but you read a Cliff Notes version or hear a couple sentences, they're kind of rolling their eyes going, some kind of stage mom, it'd be like me trying to be in charge of my 7-year-old's, the T-ball team, you know what I mean? Telling everybody to do what and making him whatever. And so I don't think that's the case, though, it sounds like, from this profile, is that she doesn't really seem to crave the spotlight. Go into that if you would.
Yeah, I mean, that was the first thing she said. She was very reluctant to do the interview. I think that she's certainly seen a commentary made of her on social media. And I think when it first started, whether it's a podcast or anything else, I think when you're first stepping out into public life, kind of like Regina was, you kind of go through the ringer where I think she thought she was probably having some in-depth conversations. And then the way some of this stuff gets clipped, like, for example, the thing with him having significant others and her weighing in on it, when you peel that out of the context of a larger conversation, sometimes it makes you sound worse. And I think that you can get jaded from that process, certainly. But, I get the sense that she really wants to be, part of the thing with the agency and getting certified is starting a foundation or starting a branch of the agency where she's going to mentor like high school and college parents on how to do this NIL thing and make it seem a little less crazy and Wild West for everybody. So I think that there's some good there that she's planning on doing. And whether it gets messy, listen, I talked to agents for this story who said that there's no possible way that she can be involved in the negotiation of this contract. If she tries to get involved, we'll see. The only time will tell.
What do you mean there's no possible way she could? Are they saying like that shouldn't happen, or what do you mean by that?
Well, yeah, just so for example, you think about Lamar Jackson and his mom, and she's not an NFLPA certified agent, but was kind of a go-between, right, throughout this process. And it can get so messy. Imagine sitting in a GM's office and saying, we think that your kid is not exactly worth this, and having to digest that and having to accept that and not being able to argue that. Whereas a lot of agents are smart enough to say, listen, I think this is really all I'm going to be able to get. And we've seen time and time again players negotiating for themselves, for example. How much money did Richard Sherman leave on the table when he negotiated his own 49ers contract? He got demolished in that. And so I think that there's some precedent there where if you're too close to the situation, you do get burned. And so I think that's why there are other agents involved here.
No, it makes a lot of sense. Conor Orr does such a good job covering the National Football League. We love having him on the show from SI. You got to check out the Jayden Daniels feature. One more on Daniels really quick. He's not playing on Sunday, and you know him better than we do at this point. I just wonder what you think about how hard he was charging this week. The way I've kind of been explained it from people around the building is that there was a meeting with him where they kind of laid out their plan early in the week, and you're trying to get him to go along with it. But you know what these young superstar athletes are like. They want to play. They almost need to be protected from themselves. What do you make of him missing his first career game this weekend?
I'm sure it's going to sting, right? And I think those are the moments that you probably figure out exactly how much you love it and how much ownership you want over something like this, right? Whenever you are forced to take a step back. And I think this, it's almost a good thing, right? It's like a self-imposed break. And we've seen it's different with some of these younger quarterbacks, whether it's Bryce Young or it's going to happen with J.J. McCarthy here in a few weeks where, even if things aren't going badly, just taking a step back for a week isn't the worst thing. And so for him, even though it's injury related, I think it's one of those things that it could end up being healthy. He's the kind of guy that if I had to psychoanalyze is, kind of takes the silver lining out of everything. And so I'd assume he looks at it like that.
Conor, quick gear shift here. Let's say I was a part owner of an NFL football team. Should I also get to be a color commentator on some of those games or other games around the league? Considering, let's say they're on my team's schedule. How's that? Is that cool?
Oh man, what a loaded question. I could talk for hours about this. It's crazy to me because I've been raving about this for 2 years, and then all of a sudden on Monday Night Football, when we see him in a booth, everyone's like, "Wow, this doesn't seem like it's fair." And yeah, of course it's not fair. And so, I went back and I talked to a couple teams this week, and the feeling was kind of across the board, right? There's teams that are like, hey, we don't really care about this. We're not going to give him anything. And then it ranges all the way to the other end where teams are like, you absolutely bet you're behind that we care about this. Like, it's not fair. And it goes beyond just talking to players on Zoom during production meetings. It's like, are you interviewing them as prospective future free agents? Are you getting stuff about their position coaches that you might want to hire as coordinators? And so I think that you either have to open up this opportunity to all owners or you have to take Tom out of these production meetings. And the crazy thing about it is I've listened to all of these broadcasts that he's done, and the best things that he does have nothing to do with anything that he's gleaning from these production meetings. When he's at his best, he's just being Tom Brady in the moment and saying, I'm the greatest player of all time. Here's what I would do. And that's what we want to listen to.
Well, I've yet to hear a thoughtful rebuttal to my take, which is your take. I mean, here's what I got a lot of on social media. Oh, he's Tom Brady, man. He can do what he wants. Or there was like you just hating because it's the GOAT or something like that, which are just dumb things that don't make any sense. And then the other thing you hear is from like a thoughtful argument that's just wrong is, well, he's not at the facility. Okay, as if Zooms don't work to get information, as if being on the field for 3 hours before the game, talking to coordinators and coaches is not a benefit when you're then courting that player as a free agent, that off season after you had this great conversation with them. I mean, there are just ridiculous advantages to this, and I've yet to hear anyone at any level from the league all the way down make a cogent argument as to how that's not the case.
I likened it to, I thought about this for a while, and I likened it to this the other day, and it's sort of in defense of Tom, right? It's like when your kid starts playing youth sports and, all of their friends, like you stack a team of T-ballers, right? And your kid gets picked to be on this stacked team and is winning all these games. Is that awesome for your kid? Yeah. Is it bad for the health of the league? Yeah. Are you as a parent going to be the one to raise your hand and be like, this is immoral and we need to stop it? Probably not. You know what I mean? Like if we're being honest. And so for Brady, it's like, yeah, it's really cool that I got the Raiders at a 90% discount. I make $40 million a year to broadcast for Fox. It does help my ownership stake, and no one's going to say anything because I'm the greatest player of all time. Like, you wouldn't stop, And so it's really on him to have a dose of morality that I just don't think is coming.
Last piece people should check out from Conor is you did a scale basically on all the 0-2 teams and who should be closest to hitting the panic button. And the Chiefs, not surprisingly, of all the 0-2 teams, are the team you're least worried about. But they've got the Giants. They've got to win this weekend. They probably will in the Meadowlands. But what do you make of their 0-2 start? I mean, it does not look good offensively. It's basically Patrick Mahomes throwing, Patrick Mahomes running, or them not gaining any yards.
Yeah, I mean, and this is going to happen, right? We saw the Patriots go through so many different iterations of being the Patriots, and I think the Chiefs have really tried to get ahead of it. I mean, they're replenishing at a lot of positions, but they're also just banged up or suspended, and you can blame them for taking character risks, which, again, is something that you have to do as a team that's always drafting toward the back end of the draft. And so I think a lot of this stuff is just a compounding, issue of success. And, are they still going to win at least 9 games this year? 100%. Are they going to beat the Giants by 2 touchdowns this weekend? Probably. And so, I think it's one of those things where whenever they hit a slump, it's very New England-esque, right? We freak out, and then they always find a way to win because they have the greatest player in the NFL.
Conor, thank you, buddy. Enjoy the weekend.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
You got it. Check him out. SI's Conor Orr. Great feature on Jayden Daniels, who is not going to play against the Raiders.